I knew from the very first night I met Ethan that there was something different about him. That was, 16 years ago now? We were both 22, just barely out of college, and the world felt wide open. He looked at me with this kind of earnest fascination, like I was the most interesting person in the room. And honestly, why wouldn't he? Back then, I carried myself with this effortless confidence, the kind that made men lean in without me even trying. While other women were chasing after guys who didn't deserve them, I somehow stumbled onto Ethan. He wasn't like the others. He wasn't glued to some glowing screen scrolling endlessly. He listened, really listened, and he wanted something more than just a fling. That kind of sincerity? Rare. Those early days felt like a dream. We'd spend hours walking the city streets, losing track of time. Ethan always noticed the smallest details. The way my hair fell across my face, the stories I told, the things I found funny. He made me feel cherished. By the time we moved in together just 2 years later, it felt inevitable, natural. Like, of course we were supposed to share our lives. He'd bring me flowers for no reason, leave little notes in my bag. When he finally asked me to marry him after 5 years, I wasn't even surprised. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to marry me? Our wedding was exactly what I'd always pictured. And in his eyes that day, I could see it. He thought he'd won the lottery. The first years of marriage were bliss. We had our routines, our private jokes, our Sundays that stretched lazily into afternoons. He'd dive into his books or tinkering projects, and I'd scroll through my feeds, catching up with friends. It worked. He didn't resent it. If anything, he seemed grateful I had something that made me happy. And then along came the rise of social media. Instagram exploding. New apps, new voices, eventually TikTok, where suddenly the world felt like it was in my pocket. Clips that were funny, creative, addictive. Yes, and a lot of them involved men who were, well, let's just say, easy to look at. I'd stay up at night scrolling, sometimes for hours. The algorithm always knew just what I wanted. Ethan would be next to me reading some novel, and I'd be elsewhere, pulled into this flood of energy and humor and faces that lit up the screen. It felt harmless, just unwinding. But Ethan started to notice. He'd give me those wounded puppy eyes at dinner when I checked my phone between bites, or make little digs like, "Am I competing with your screen tonight?" Oh, please. As if a few minutes of scrolling was the end of the world. He was so dramatic. I tried to explain. This wasn't about ignoring him. It was just fun, entertainment. He acted like I was choosing strangers over him. Whisper? Maybe in some ways I was. The content started shifting. More men. Fitness coaches, comedians, musicians, men with confidence, ambition, men who made me laugh in ways he hadn't in years. And yes, they were gorgeous. I began memorizing their posting schedules, anticipating their updates. It was thrilling in a way I couldn't explain. Eventually, one night, I saw this actor post his workout routine, shirtless, glistening, confidence just dripping off the screen. Without thinking, I typed, "I'm married, but give me one chance." Short pause, then chuckles nervously. It felt wild, like tossing a spark into the void. He'd never notice. Millions of followers. It was harmless. A joke, right? Except Ethan noticed. A few days later, he stood in front of me with his phone, that serious expression like he'd caught me committing a crime. I laughed it off. "Are you serious right now?" But he didn't budge. He asked how I'd feel if he left comments like that on some celebrity's post. Not the same, not even close. His comparisons were ridiculous. If he did that, he'd mean it. Me? I was just playing around. I offered an apology, if only to shut down the argument. God, I hated those heavy talks. Easier to say what he wanted to hear and move on. But the resentment simmered. Who was he to police me? I wasn't a child. If I wanted to leave a cheeky comment, that was my business. So I kept going. Smarter this time. Delete things after a while. Be more subtle. But the rush? It didn't go away. Then I met Dylan. He wasn't some mega celebrity, just the guy with a few thousand followers posting cooking videos. But he was charming, funny, attractive. And unlike the others, he responded. He actually talked to me about food, travel, life. He remembered details, complimented me, made me feel seen. When was the last time Ethan had done that? I realized how empty things had become at home. Ethan was there, but he wasn't there. Dylan filled that space. At first, it was innocent enough, casual chats. Then the tone shifted, warmer, intimate. And when he suggested coffee, it felt natural, just friends meeting. But the second I saw him in person, I knew. We talked for hours, easy, comfortable. And when he kissed me by my car that afternoon, it was like a jolt of electricity. I hadn't felt alive like that in years. Was it wrong? Sure, but it was also exactly what I had been starving for. The physical side came fast after that. Dylan made me feel radiant, desired, beautiful. Not just Ethan's wife, stuck in routine, but me, Lainey, the woman worth chasing, worth keeping. I told myself it wasn't hurting anyone. What Ethan didn't know couldn't hurt him, right? But it wasn't just Dylan. Once the door was open, I leaned further in. More messages, more late-night exchanges with men who made me feel alive. Some never responded, sure, but some did. And every little ping, every scene notification sent this little thrill through me. I was juggling connections, balancing secrets, and it felt exhilarating, like I was outsmarting the whole world. I was living a double life. By day, the loyal wife with a stable marriage. By night, the captivating woman adored by men across screens and messages. I felt unstoppable, like I had tapped into something Ethan couldn't touch. Finally, I was choosing happiness on my own terms. But then, little cracks started forming. My friend Clara noticed. She saw me smiling at my phone, commenting on videos, and she gave me that look. The one that says, I know what you're doing. Clara had 2 divorces under her belt, so she spoke from experience. She warned me gently that I should be careful, that I was leaving a trail. A trail Ethan could follow. Cheating. That's the word she used. It stung. It didn't feel like that to me. I was just filling the gaps Ethan left behind. Still, her warning planted a seed of paranoia. I became more meticulous, clearing chats, deleting evidence. I thought I had it handled. I really did. But secrets? They have claws. They scratch their way out. And no matter how carefully you hide them, there's always a crack. One night, after a long, breathless evening with Dylan, I came home and collapsed into bed. I must have left my phone unlocked on the nightstand. The next morning, Ethan's demeanor was off. Not his usual quiet sulking. No, this was sharper, focused, calculated. I brushed it off, assumed work stress, because what else could it be? But the very next evening, he walked through the door carrying an envelope. His face, I'd never seen him like that. Calm, cold, determined. He handed it to me without a word. And when I opened it, divorce papers. I froze. Divorce? My mouth moved before my brain caught up. What? Cheating? The word tasted foreign, wrong, like it belonged to someone else's life. But then I saw it. Stacks of printed screenshots, neat folders of evidence, months of my messages, comments, threads with Dylan, pictures I thought were deleted forever. It was all there, staring back at me like a carefully built case file. I tried to explain. It wasn't what it looked like. It was just fantasy, just escape. But Ethan didn't flinch. He told me cheating isn't something you work through. That trust, once shattered, couldn't be glued back together. Oh, so now he's suddenly Mr. Righteous. After 15 years, he was going to toss me aside without so much as a conversation? I begged, suggested we separate for a while. I could stay in the guest room. We could take it slow, figure things out. But he was unmoved. His mind was made up. 2 days later, he told me to leave. Just like that. Pack a bag, get out. The nerve. After everything I gave him, he was throwing me out like garbage. I told him he was being cruel, that he'd regret it, that couples work through worse than this all the time. He just stared at me, silent, like I wasn't even worth responding to. So I left. Stayed on Clara's couch for a while. She tried to be supportive, but her patience wore thin. Every night, she'd look at me with that mix of pity and judgment, and I couldn't stand it. And the divorce? A nightmare. Ethan had the upper hand with all that evidence. Every text, every DM, every hotel receipt. The judge barely looked at me. I was branded the villain. Manipulative, unfaithful. Like I'd been plotting this whole thing. But none of that mattered. In the end, all people saw was the betrayal. Not the reasons, not the cracks Ethan ignored for years. Just my sins, written in bold ink. Sometimes, late at night, I think about Dylan. We don't talk anymore. The weight of what happened crushed whatever we had. But sometimes I imagine if Ethan had been more forgiving, would I have let Dylan go? Would I have chosen my marriage? I'll never know. Starting over at 37 feels like walking barefoot on broken glass. But here's the truth I've been circling around. Ethan wasn't the saint everyone thinks he was. He had his role, sure, the victim, the wronged husband, but he wasn't perfect. He wasn't attentive. He let me fade into the background until someone else noticed me. I'm not excusing myself, but I won't carry all the blame either. Love is supposed to bend, to forgive, to grow. Ethan chose to slam the door instead. That's on him. And maybe, just maybe, it's better this way. Because if one mistake, one lapse, is all it takes for him to erase 15 years, then what kind of love was that, really? I've been broken down, humiliated, stripped of everything I built, but I'm still here, still breathing. And there's a strange freedom in that. No more pretending, no more silencing myself, no more living in a home where my worth goes unnoticed. Someday, I'll meet someone who understands that people are messy, flawed, human. Someone who sees mistakes not as death sentences, but as cracks where the light can come through. Someone who chooses me even when I stumble. As for Ethan, he can keep his apartment, his spotless reputation, his self-righteousness. Congratulations, darling, you won. But I survived. And survival is its own kind of victory. This is not my ending. It's just my beginning.